about to hop right into this shit with the first community question from Ganja himself. Ganja!
You want me to read it? You want me to read it?
Yeah, you read it.
What do you feel are the main differences between Marvel heroes and DC heroes? This can go from either the TV shows, movies, or comic books. Like, what are the biggest differences that you guys noticed between the two different IPs and basically different comic book stories and just storylines with the characters in general? Who wants to go first?
And let me add on to that too, and because I know Alan and Ganja, I think this is probably why he's asking the question, because they got into like a little debate about it, about who tells like a deeper story from, I guess, the superhero sense from like Marvel or DC, and who do you guys think do that? Does Marvel do it better, or do DC does it better? Because I think DC does it a little bit better.
For me personally, I always feel that Marvel does it better because it actually makes their characters feel more humanistic. Like they have, faults, and they have stuff that they can, they're not 100% heroes or gods like they do in DC, where I feel the DC heroes, they could never do no wrong. And the fact that most of the time they're just going up against heroes that are just cut out board bad guys, where if you look in the bad guys, especially in the Spider-Man series, they are much more fleshed out. The only villains you get fleshed out are in the Batman series. Whereas Marvel, they take more chances with their villains and they give them more of a tragic backstory where you feel kind of not guilty, but you feel empathy for what they're doing as a villain. And I find that speaks to me more. Like, I love the more realistic version of Marvel, where they actually take a more realistic approach, especially with like government politics of that world. And not only that, like the heroes, they suffer consequences. Like most of those guys, if they don't work with S.H.I.E.L.D., they're fucking broke poor. And they're doing like side jobs to try to make ends meet. And that's exactly how superheroes would be in the real world. They wouldn't be like these god type figures that you see in DC, where half of the symbolism is Jesus Christ when you see them come into the battle.
I'm just looking at the chart right now too, and I know Dejan is bringing up a lot of good points. Like, that was actually kind of funny. He was like, "I guess Marvel heroes have addiction problems, like Iron Man, Jessica Jones, etc."
Yeah, you're not wrong.
He's not wrong. That's actually
true. So does Roy Harper in DC. He was addicted to crack or morphine at one point. Wasn't he?
Oh yeah, Speedy. He was addicted to heroin at one point in the storyline.
That's what it was.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Max in the chat said a really good point too. He said DC heroes are more role models representing ideals, while Marvel heroes are more grounded and more relatable.
That's actually a brilliant point on that.
That's the description of a role model, though, is someone who is relatable and someone you can look up to. Spider-Man is 100% a role model.
The thing is, like DC role model, like these, like you can have role models that are relatable, but the thing about DC characters is they're people like aspirations. You can't relate to Batman. No one can relate to Batman. But when you see Batman, you're like, oh man, this guy's doing all this stuff. He's taking all this pain on himself. Maybe if I could just be something like that, I could be a better person. Same thing with Superman. Same thing with all these heroes. Is they're representing ideals. The brilliance of DC is they're basically the representations of the Greek gods from, when Greek mythology was actually a legitimate religion where people believed that these gods actually did these stories. The equivalent in our modern times are the DC universe. So you have these characters that's how superheroes would be if they were in real life, because they're these people that stand above men. Because we have heroes that are, police officers, soldiers, firefighters. Those are heroes. Superheroes are people that transcend those titles. And that's, to me, it's like why the main difference is because, Spider-Man's your best friend, but Superman's someone you wish you could be.
I think it's based on the storylines too, because back in the day that both have kind of went through that phase. Like when you look at 50 Superman, he was pretty much the archetype for all superheroes, and it was just like great to be a superhero. And all Marvel comics too pretty much had that same mentality, where it's just like it's great to be a superhero, isn't it? And then as you get more and more and more into like the 90s era of comics, then they started to like explore on both sides with DC and Marvel, where I see DC tackles those ideas a little bit more. Like you said, they represent ideas and stuff like that. The DC seems more grounded in reality, where it's just like, if superheroes actually exist, they would go through these problems, this, and this, and this. Because pretty much like,
are you going through DC through the movies or the comic books? Because in both. In the movies, I never get that sense in movies, especially the Zack Snyder's trilogy. I never get the sense that these guys are relatable in any sense, especially Superman in the first, I think it was Man of Steel. I never was relatable to him at all, even when they were showing his teenager scenes and him being a frightened kid. Because in the end, he still had this higher ideal that was totally unattainable for me as a person. That's why I like the Marvel superheroes more, because they're more relatable and they're more actual achievable role models, where you're not going to be 100% pure like Superman. Even if you start to be like it.
Are you going to become Iron Man next month? Are you going to make $1 billion and be able to afford all your suits and his, huge drinking problem and bedding women all the time? I'm just saying. Can you relate to that?
No, but what I'm saying is that's more realistic to me because I can understand a billionaire who does that, who has a crazy lifestyle, being addicted to a drug, whereas him trying to make amends for that, he goes around saving people and doing good as any chance he can because he has the means to do it. Where I see on on DC side, it's more of like like Alan mentions, they're like godlike figures, and I can't relate to that. I never could relate to DC heroes because of that. They were too much godlike that to the point that I didn't feel like any kind of sense of humanity with them. Even Superman, most of the time you see him, he's a good boy, scout boy. He's always doing the good things, getting cats out of the trees, stuff like that. But then you have a few artists that will actually take him further and explore his. I like the stories with Superman where they explore that he has a difficult time dealing, like not being able to save everybody, stuff like that. But they're very far in between. It's mostly to me that these are just gods to us to admire and wanted to be and just wish we could attain to that kind of level. Whereas Marvel goes like, no, our superheroes are flawed and they could be anybody. They just had power or good fortune or great intelligence put onto them. So they're trying to use it the best they can to help people because they feel either in Spider-Man's case, they feel forced to do it by loss of a loved one, or in Iron Man's case, they're trying to make retribution for their own selfish lifestyle.
I think the villains, like when I was saying that, I think it's more of the representation of the villains themselves because like Marvel, most of the villains just be like, oh, you did this thing. I'm really just salty or I'm just like, I'm jealous of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, like people like with DC, you look at like mostly Batman that it's just not problems that can really be solved or hidden and stuff like that. Like you can solve it like that. But in the Batman sense, it's just like most of all those villains, they just represent different mental illnesses. And it's just like, if me beating Joker's ass is really gonna save this guy, or like should I just really talk to him or Scarecrow? Like maybe these probably just have like deep dark histories and problems, and I'm just really trying to help him. And just Batman himself, he's just like, I'm doing this because I'm trying to cope with my own psychosis.
Well,
so
that's like I said, that's only Batman. When you look at the other plethora of heroes and villains they have in DC, they're not really as flushed out as much as Batman or Superman is. They're really
look at the Flash because that's an exact example of they actually fleshed out a lot of his character and his villains.
Oh yeah.
The thing is, you're not supposed to relate to Batman or Superman. They're not relatable characters. That's kind of the brilliance of them. Is you're supposed to almost be in awe. It's like when you see Superman go up against a villain. Like if it was Iron Man and Captain America, it'd be like, okay, they're eventually going to end him in some way, either in jail or they're going to kill them. You know, like Iron Man, like in Ultron, for instance, they just straight up murder Ultron. But the thing is, when you see Superman go up, you're like, how the hell is this guy going to do it without killing? That's why Man of Steel pisses me off so much, because that ending, basically, they're trying to do the Marvel thing of make him relatable, because anybody in that situation would have killed him.
That was the only good thing I liked out of Man of Steel was that ending.
Fuck that ending, man.
And I want to talk about Don's opinion, too, actually, because like that's the thing. Like people always say that Marvel villains are always like just shitty in general. And like, I mean, I kind of agree with that. In the movies, yeah. Yeah, and I kind of agree with that, but the thing is, like, with DC, I always feel like those superheroes exist just because you need a villain to go up against, like Iron Man, and Justin, you can say it's, like, not relatable or whatever. It's like, you know, like, how are we ever going to be relatable to that situation? Like, we don't got $1 billion. But the thing is, I can even relate to the villain sometimes where it's almost like, yeah, I would, if I was working with you and you made a shit ton of money and then, like, you left me behind and no one gives a fuck, I would be kind of like that other Jack. Who's a bald guy who worked with him?
I don't remember his character.
Yeah, like I kind of sympathize with him, even though he was a villain. Like I, you know, like there's parts of it where it's like even when Tony Stark came back and made the new suit and you know did everything he did, I like seeing that he's fucking flawed. Like he's kind of an asshole, like how I am, and the way he would do his powers, like I would agree with that. With Bruce Wayne, I feel like. Or just Batman in general, I don't understand why, you know, he'd be fighting Superman. Like, I know in the comic books they told a better story than the movie, but I still feel like that's why I give the movie a break, because just that storyline in general is fucking stupid. Why would they ever fight each other? Ever. Like, they shouldn't.
Not to do too nerdy, but basically just to sum up The Dark Knight Returns, what it was is Batman, like, superheroes, if they're not working for the government, they're criminals, and the government's like, you know what, fuck you, Batman, we're sick of your shit. And then Superman basically gets sent to kind of calm him down. And Batman's like, I'm not going to fucking listen to you, you're a corporate lackey. And that's why the fight happens. But up to that point, it's been like 50 years of fucking them working together, being best friends. So that's why it was a big deal.
I think both of them tackled that whole little thing like really well. Like one of the best things from the DC animated series, like one of my favorite arcs is just Superman dealing with the fact that he has to be like you said, he's always a Boy Scout and he's always looked up to doing the right thing. That's why Injustice is so intriguing because he's just like, you know what, fuck this. Like I am always doing the right thing. And people like fucking.
That's why I loved Red Steel, where he goes and becomes leader of the Soviet Union, because somehow they still maintain him as Superman as being a Soviet leader. Like I found that hilarious.
That was his original interpretation, actually.
Yeah,
he was supposed to be like an enemy of the United States.
Yeah, but it's just like the simple fact that he's just like, yeah, I try to do everything that I can, and people like fucking Lex Luthor still get an upper hand on me, and I can't even beat the fuck out of the guy because he still is within legal means, and I'm just like, God damn it!
It's more sympathy than just like you liking his character and what he can do and all the other.
I fucking. Like, and I'm gonna trigger people when I say this. No, I fucking like hate Superman a lot. It's kind of like the Goku effect. It's just they didn't got really, really fucking overpowered with that character where they really have written themselves into a wall. It's just like you cannot. He is just like really unrelatable now. He's a fucking god, and it's just like this motherfucker can literally go into the sun and turn into a god.
That's what happens. Happened multiple times.
On the other side of things, though, like to contradict what Ganja was saying, like I was agreeing with what most of you were saying, man. But when, like, to go off what you were just saying, Anthony, what actually made Superman relatable, like the most for me, was those scenes when he was a kid in Man of Steel. Like, granted, that movie's not amazing, but like the whole element of someone, you know, who's like in their early teens, like really confused about something and something they're really struggling with when we look at them as, like you said, a god, seeing them, that's them taken down a few notches. So like, I appreciated that. Like him being like, why me? Like, is this a punishment? Like, what did I do wrong? Like, that's a really interesting character trait, I think, for someone who like anyone would want to be.
Like in the movie, like that line that he says to his father, he was just like, "Yeah, you're the secret to know that we're not alone in the universe." And he's just like, "Can I just pretend that I'm your son?"
Yeah, exactly.
Kevin Costner, as soon as possible, goes, "You are my son."
Yeah.
Yeah, but he has a good delivery for it. And
no, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. That's why we all giggle.
I like that part.
No, and now I like the and somebody else can go after me, but I like the whole both people have done this too, both Marvel and DC. But the storylines I like is just how would superheroes fit in the real world. That's why I like Daredevil so much. That's why I like Civil War so much. And like I said, DC the animated series covered that really well too, because they were just like, oh, y'all motherfuckers got like a watchtower in the sky, like what the fuck? Like they covered it in Young Justice, they did it in the animated series. It's just like the whole quote, "Who guards the Guardians?" It's just like I love that type of shit. It's like the government is just like, y'all motherfuckers are gods, so we need to do something about this. So so I just like the whole dynamic. But
for me, my whole thing is just, it always comes back down to just entertainment, and it's just like sometimes when I watch a DC movie, I feel like there's some piece of this that I'm not getting. Like I need to be into this shit to really absorb and really digest this fucking concept of like Batman is some serious shit and there's some serious storyline darkness. And it's like when I watch that shit, I want to turn into a kid. I want to get my bowl of fucking Captain Crunchies and fucking like, oh, this is awesome, you know, like.
No,
I
Nick,
want to be stupid, you know, like.
You feel the exact same way, like how I feel with most animes. Like I can't get into One Punch Man. I just can't like it because of the same fact. Like you feel like you watching it, you like, there's a joke here that I'm not getting, and I'm not getting it. So yeah, I totally
like Captain America: Civil War, and even like Avengers: Infinity War and everything. I know there's a lot that's about to happen, and there's like maybe Captain America is better than what I think it is. But it's just like, dude, like, I don't know why Ant-Man turned into a fucking giant. I don't know why they had to get Spider-Man. Like, even though in the movie they tell you, like, hey, we got Spider-Man because of this whatever situation. But it's all building up to something that I don't even know what the fuck it is. And I don't got time to go find out. I'd rather just watch a movie.
But, like, that's like jumping into a series, like, at, like, the 15th one and skipping around being like, well, I don't know what's going on here. It's like, well, you didn't watch, number 13 and number 9. Like, that was part of the series.
Yeah.
Like, they're doing something fucking amazing, man.
No, I agree with you guys totally. But
I would agree with you, Julian. But sometimes, like, even I'm a big comic book nerd, especially on the Marvel side. Like, I remember getting Ultimate Spider-Man when they first released the series, and they do a lot. They do sometimes references and mentions to like characters off screen or some events that happen off screen that even I got to go, okay, pull up the Wikipedia.
Yeah, and it's just like I'm at a situation where. Oh, go ahead, Julian.
I was gonna say, I guess, but I feel like those times when you're pulling up the Wikipedia, they're not like super crucial things to know. Whereas, like, if you don't know the lore for like half the characters in Suicide Squad, you're gonna be like, why the fuck are these two characters talking? Like, why do they know each other so well? Like, what's going on?